I think it's actually impossible to watch this movie if you're not going to allow it to do whatever it wants with real life historical figures. Like, if you just start getting hung up on the details, it will never end and you will hate this movie. You really have two options, because this movie treats history like a suggestion. So, sure, you know, they could try to set up a spy story during World War I with established historical figures that kind of follows real life events, you know, but still trying to tell an interesting story packed with action, whatever. Yeah, sure, they could have done that. Or, hear me out, they could just take these figures and do whatever the fuck they want with them. And doesn't that sound just so much more fun? So guess what? That's exactly what they did. They just did anything they wanted with these historical figures. They put them in contexts that don't even make sense. They made them act in ways that don't even make sense. And in Rasputin's case, it literally doesn't make sense. But it doesn't matter, because it's fun and it's entertaining. So who cares? I didn't go into this trying to get a piece of history taught to me. I didn't try to get information out of this movie. I just tried to get a fun type of movie. Forget about all the knowledge that you have about history. Forget about every single thing you know about these historical figures, and you will have a good time. Because all of the action scenes are really fun and over the top, just like the other Kingsman movies. So why not carry that over to the story itself? The older Kingsman movies, they don't really have to follow any necessarily established, history, whatever timeline. So they just tell whatever story they want. This one takes a risk by taking historical events that already happened and turning them into something completely different. I think it works. Some things less than others, but definitely for the most part, I think it's fine. And speaking of the story, actually, it's split into two distinct parts. So one covers Orlando and Conrad and their diverging opinions, let's say, about whether or not Conrad should participate in the war or not. And the other covers the events surrounding the underground organization that's pulling the strings from behind and making the war happen. So very, very much like typical evil organization making shit happen from behind the scenes. I don't think it's worth getting hung up on. I think it works. And if anything, I think it's pretty interesting, to be honest. And I also think it's cool how the story's pretty much intertwined the whole time, except towards the middle. One of them just kind of takes a back seat, so we can wrap up the other and then get back to the other one. And it's not like super jarring or anything, but I just kind of noticed it that one of the stories definitely takes a fat back seat for a good 40 minutes. I'd say maybe half an hour. It takes a good back seat so that we can really just give more attention to the story towards the middle. I'm not going to spoil which one. Although, to be fair, the story that's wrapped up does lead nicely into the conclusion of the other story, so it's really not like a jarring thing where you kind of pause, go, and then unpause, go back. Like it's pretty seamless how they fit into each other. And also, we get some of the most creative fights in the movie during that middle portion. And I'm specifically talking about the silent fight in the trenches, which I'm not going to really dive too deep into because it's kind of a spoiler, but that fight is super interesting. And I feel like all the Kingsman movies have that one fight that's really interesting. The first one is definitely in the church. The second one, I would say maybe, I haven't seen the second one in a while, but maybe the one where they're fighting in the barn with the, I forgot what the American equivalent of the Kingsman is called, but I would say maybe that's the most interesting. Either that or the final battle on the island. I really don't remember which one of those is more interesting, but every Kingsman movie has that one like really, really memorable fight. And I would say for this one, it's definitely that silent fight in the trenches. And the twist at the end of that part of the story completely took me by surprise. And I mean, like, I was flabbergasted. I didn't expect it at all. And again, all these movies kind of have like a twist that you don't expect in the first one and in the second one and in this one. They all have that one twist towards the middle that you do not expect. And I like it, but if they do it every movie, you're gonna start expecting it. But I feel like the type of twist that it is, it's so off the wall, like no movie usually really does this, that you don't really expect it. You might expect a twist, but you'll never expect that they go so far. Because in this one, they go pretty fucking far. Considering the story that they've been telling up until the point where the twist happens, they go pretty far. Other than that, the villains in the movies are fine. Some of them have a lot of characters, so they're really memorable, like Rasputin that I talked about before. And some others, well, they fall a little flat, but it's cool. You know, you need some bland ones to make the others shine. So I'm not mad at it, especially when you have a villain like, I'm gonna keep saying it, Rasputin, which is the most interesting villain in the movie, and unfortunately he does have a lot of screen time, but he's not the main focus, when I feel like he probably should have been the main focus. But it's fine. Final villain, to me, a little bland. Without going into spoilers, a little bland, especially when you compare him to some of his henchmen. And speaking of the whole Rasputin thing, it is a little weird, like the way that he acts and stuff. And by that, like, I mean that he's weird, but it's fine. I just took it as him being like very eccentric. I just wish we got some sort of explanation for the things that he does. And I mean literally everything that he does. But they really don't waste any time on that. They don't try to really explain why or how he does the things that he does. You're just supposed to kind of assume that, you know, he's like a priest or whatever, and that's how he gets his powers. I don't know. Maybe there's some historical thing there where, like, you know, if you have some context on who Rasputin is in history, maybe you'll understand better. I didn't really understand, but I didn't try to understand too much because the movie's already fucking bonkers anyway. So I just took it as what it was, really. And I'm very happy that in the end, everybody gets their comeuppance, even the goat. And I think I was the most happy about that, because that goat really went through some shit this entire movie. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll know as soon as you watch the movie. That goat goes through some shit. But don't worry, he triumphs in the end, and that's all that matters. You can't really talk about this movie without talking about the post-credit scene, which is just like, I want to say a little extra, but it's so self-aware that I actually gotta respect it. It knows that it's ridiculous, and it doesn't even try to hide that it's ridiculous. They literally present the final, like the post-credit scene, as if it's a new Marvel villain. Like they're revealing a new villain for phase 1. Like it was reminiscent of Thanos in Avengers. I think it's completely fucking ridiculous revealing, well, considering who they revealed. But I think if they weren't so self-aware, it wouldn't have worked. But since they were, it kind of does. For me, at least. For sure, for some people, it won't work just because of what it is, what the reveal is. For sure, it won't work. But I think, you know, the way that they did it and the way that they presented the universe prior to introducing this character, which is weird to talk about this person as a character, but before they introduced this character, they clearly established that this world is completely different. So I'm not mad at them introducing someone like that. And to be honest, I want more Kingsman movies, so I'm excited for whatever at this point, no matter how ridiculous or possibly offensive it's gonna be. They've kind of made it clear that they're not trying to bring these people into the movies to be offensive. They're just trying to tell a, you know, kind of a weird ass story just based on real life events. As long as you don't take it too serious, you really shouldn't get offended at it.